Hello. Hello, everybody. It's so cool when there are people already here. You have no idea. That very first time I ever did this, that was the most awkward part, was at the very beginning when I was basically like talking to myself. And yeah, the format just works better when there's other people hanging out. So thank you for joining. Whether you're here to able to be here during the live stream, or if you catch this on the replay, either way, if this is where you're choosing to spend some time, like let me just tell you how huge of a compliment that is to me personally, and it's definitely not lost on me that you're choosing to spend your time this way. So thank you so much for that. I love doing this. That's really the main thing, right? Is that we choose how we want to show up in the world, and then we do that. We make our best effort to show up like that, even when maybe it's scary or we don't know how. We've never done that before. Yeah, there. This is a season. Let's put it like that, because as I'm prepping for today's live stream and kind of taking in some other astrologers' perspectives around these three energies that we're going to talk about today, um, there I it's really difficult to put into words like how huge this energy right now is. Like the burst of creation that is like upon us already and about to really happen. It's like, wow. I mean, we get to be alive right now. That's my takeaway, is like, holy crap. Like I feel like this is the time that we came here for. This was the whole reason, was like right now. These times are so potent in terms of like really processing the path that we've come through so far, which is a whole thing all by itself. But also, really, the main point of what's happening right now is that we're also looking into the future and into like the highest good of what would serve humanity. And as a collective, we are meeting there more than we ever have before. And it's really only just beginning. Like the awakening at this time, the people that are realizing that what they want matters, that they are able to like stand in their own power and pursue what they want. So many people are already just like bursting, and the energy is like only just beginning. So yeah, these three topics that we're going to talk about today, as I was prepping for them, I just was sitting there in like literally humble gratitude that we get to be alive right now. Like it's crazy. I yeah. Yeah. I it's helping me to tune into like the literal divinity of life itself. Like, why are we here kind of thing, which is kind of always on my mind. So of course, like it's something of a lens that I see the world through. Like, why is this happening? What is the point of this? I ask myself that multiple times a day, all the time. And this evolution of like what's possible, like we as a collective, like we as humanity are set to accomplish a level of unity that's like never been seen before in a civilization of our kind, where we have free will. Like that's really what sets us apart, as I understand it, from other planets and other life systems that are out there, maybe in other galaxies, other universes, is like our ability to have free will is, I mean, it's led us down this evolutionary path where that's what I'm saying about processing. Like, what have we done with that free will in the past? And what are we wanting to do with it going forward? Because unity implies that all of these people who could act independently are choosing to act in harmony. And how would that even happen? It would happen because, like, through their own empowerment, they're tuning into the same thing, the interconnectedness that we truly all are a part of. So, like, that's what's happening. Like, we're all arriving, like, in this place, like, where maybe it's kind of a solo journey to get here, but you, like, burst through to the other side and you see that there's, like, a whole group of people hanging out, and they're like, "Hey, welcome. We're glad you're here." And, like, that's what it feels like. It feels like we're on that other side of, in this space of, we've tuned into this place of, like, unconditional love for all beings, humanity especially, but all beings, and operating from that place. I mean, I'm realizing through some, I mean, like, literally through some adversity that I manifested this last week, like, I'm realizing the strength of my spiritual side more than ever, and getting to see, like, the strength that I've cultivated inside of myself. Um, it's interesting how sometimes, like, you have to have an enemy to, or not even an enemy, but like an opponent. When you have an opponent, especially a very equally matched one, you get to see yourself stand up inside your power in a way that maybe doesn't really show up out of you if they're not there, you know? So I don't know if that makes sense, but basically this whole, like, South Node transit through Scorpio, I remember specifically in the video where I talked about the transit of the North Node through Taurus and the South Node through Scorpio. Basically, like, this is a time, like, these 18 months in general, plus Pluto's in Capricorn, Uranus is in Taurus, like, all of these things are bringing, like, our old, outdated power structures forward. So, like, the South Node through Scorpio, it's bringing back to the surface anytime you left a little chunk of your power with somebody else back in your past. The South Node through Scorpio transit, they will come back. They'll raise up again, and seemingly out of nowhere, and they will be flaunting your power in your face. And at this point, you know, here's what I'm realizing out of my experience of this is, I'm a different person than the last time this interaction took place, where yes, I did leave a chunk of my power. I felt like I didn't have a good option. I didn't have a good option to take action and stand up for myself. So I just kept quiet, basically. And this time, my reaction was so very different. I felt my own self-worth. I felt my ability to say, no, this is not okay with me. I felt my options, and I was willing to exercise my options. And I took a completely different route where, in fact, I did, like, see this person who is clearly holding a piece of my power from our interactions in the past. And thanks to them rising up yet again, I was able to reclaim that power and have since reintegrated it, and am experiencing a level of security that I don't even know if I could have gotten here without, like, someone, like, pushing against me, you know, like that opposing force that forces us to kind of, like, there's just something about that opposition that has us, it calls something out of us that maybe we couldn't have even gotten there by ourselves. So these shadows that come forward, and again, right now the earth realm is going through a lot of changes. Like, if you listen to Pam Gregory, she puts it into the language of, basically at the same time, simultaneously, the 3D world is collapsing and the 5D world is being born. And I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I can definitely see what she means as far as there are so many people waking up to this unconditional love of all beings. And the people who have operated like in the corrupt side of 3D, like the consequences are kind of catching up with them. Like Pluto and Capricorn in general is meant to highlight corruption in our systems, to bring it out where maybe it's not even new, it's just something that's been going on under the surface. But this season brings it forward to where we're all fully aware of it. And these shadows rising up to the surface, like it's such a period of healing and shadow work. And that's where I feel like life really does bring us to the perfect place at the perfect time, in my opinion, where the pieces just come together the way that they're meant to support the highest good of all things. And that's really easy to say and to feel when you already feel safe and life is good and you have plenty of money and you got a roof over your head. If you're doubting, if you're insecure, if you're feeling threatened, if your shadows are rising up around you, it's like now it's a time to like anchor even deeper into where does your strength really come from? When you're feeling threatened or insecure in the physical realm, to me, it's pushing me into my spiritual support system in a way that I've never connected with them so securely, where like, I mean, literally they're telling me things like, you don't have to worry about your physical security because, and this is, big disclaimer about this is my own opinion and my own experience, but when I'm feeling physically insecure, they're like, you don't need to worry about that because if there was somebody, for example, on their way to your house to harm you, we would give you the idea that like a Starbucks in Topeka would just hit the spot right now, or you need pizza, or you need to go have lunch at grandma's, or like any number of reasons that we will give you to guide you in a certain path that like physical danger, like that exists in a 3D world and it's collapsing and we're living more and more in this 5D world where that isn't even real. My spiritual support is telling me like we got you covered, like for real, you can trust that. And so, I mean, especially for my Pisces North Node in the 12th house, like my job in this life is to learn how to surrender, to learn how to fully trust the universe. So if that's not where you are in your personal evolution, like, this is just a story, just story time at this point. But yeah, it's an incredible time to come face to face with our shadow. And another way that I put it into language was with this South Node transit through Scorpio, I feel like my fear is just more available to me. I feel like it's just got a louder volume to it. It's a little bit more present and commenting on everything. And it's interesting because fear is part of our survival brain. Like it's never going away. We wouldn't want it to go away. It's what keeps us alive. Fear is incredibly useful, but it's like this transit is having us rework our relationship with fear. And again, anchoring back into that Taurus North Node, where does our security really come from? What does true physical security even really mean? And that's where the shadow side of Taurus can get caught up in materialism and thinking if you have enough money, then you'll feel secure. And it isn't like that. I mean, the people with the round the clock security and all the bodyguards and everything else, they're sitting inside their protected field and they're terrified. So like you can pay for all the security you want, and that doesn't mean that it's going to translate into a feeling of security. And that's ultimately what Taurus North Node transit is all about, is like truly feeling secure inside your body, inside your physical environment. And, it's like a master class in doing that when somebody shows up and is providing that opposing force, is causing questions and fears around, am I really secure? You got to call that into question, and that doesn't feel good. That's a side of shadow work that like, yeah, that does not feel good. When you feel like your safety is in question, that I don't care who you are. That's like goes against our survival instincts. It's meant to be uncomfortable. So this time just feels like this gigantic season of our shadows coming to the surface. And I personally happen to really resonate in a space of shadow work. That's like if I had to pick a label, which I don't want to, but I would probably call myself a shadow worker. And I've said it a million times, the point of shadow work is to feel better, is to help people to have a different relationship with it, to learn from it, to reintegrate it as much as possible, to heal it as much as possible, because basically all of us, when we heal, we're also sending those ripple effects out into the universe itself. So our healing on an individual level contributes to the healing of mass consciousness. So to me, shadow work feels like the most important thing that I could possibly spend my time talking about. And if you really read between the lines on my channel, it's a lot of astrology on the surface that's really like masquerading behind the scenes as shadow work. So yeah, it's kind of my thing. And with all of these shadows coming to the surface, it's like I am stunned at how many people have suddenly shown up on my channel and want to talk about shadow work. It's blowing my mind. Like there was somebody last week who commented about um, like nobody wants to talk about these things was basically the gist of it. And I bring that back around because that was very much my thought process, not that long ago, as far as I felt very alone in my darkness, in my shadow work, in my, nobody wants to come over here and play with me because it sounds so awful. And I was telling that story, you know one of the pieces that we're going to talk about today is Mercury re-entering Aquarius, and today that'll happen here in a couple of days, but today, February 11th, it is conjunct Pluto for the third time in just this last month or so. And all of that is there in Capricorn. So this Mercury conjunct Pluto, it's supposed to bring forward like basically our own limiting patterns of thought and limiting ways of seeing the world. And stories like that, like nobody wants to talk about these things. I don't even think I realized like how much I really believed that, because until it must have wiggled loose enough for you guys to show up and be like, hey, I love shadow work. Like that's my thing. Like I want to, oh yeah, that's beautiful. I want to do more of that. It shocked me. It shocked me such that it was like a spotlight on how much I really almost didn't even believe that it was possible. I was like wishing for it and almost didn't even believe that I could have it. And that's a good metaphor for so many things in life, where the story that we tell and the way that we look at the world, like it actually gives us our reality. And that's why, there are so many people out there who look like the troublemakers, and it like just like feels like it drops the bottom out of my heart and just sinks. Like they are the ones who need the most love. They are like, we're not even necessarily talking about like forgiveness here, because I'm pretty sure it was like a Jesus quote or a God quote. I'm not religious, so I don't really know, but I'm pretty sure somebody was like, you don't have to forgive when you never condemned them in the first place. When you initially look at a quote unquote troublemaker and get to gratitude like as quickly as possible, um, to get to like, what is this person helping me to see about myself? What is this person helping me to live right now? And to embrace them in that same compassion that you would any teacher or mentor. And I know that's like easier said than done, but there's also like, I I think you guys, as far as the people who have shown up around this channel, um, that chances are you're already operating a lot in that space. And that's what's so cool about these last few weeks of like finding so many fellow shadow workers has been very inspiring as far as I got a whole plethora of things that we could get into shadow work wise. So if you're in for it, me too. So that has given birth to several different creative offshoots on my channel and on the Patreon. 2 seconds on the Patreon. If you've already subscribed, then you already know that we're going to do Fourth Tuesday every month where it's a Zoom. So it'll be more video conversations, not just reading out of the chat. And hopefully getting into some more like practical examples and just whatever's relevant. What do you feel like you're processing right now? And how can we help put some perspective around that? So that's the Fourth Tuesday. And then for the month of March in the Patreon, there's a bonus event that will be a Zoom format also, so live conversations, but it'll be specific to shadow work. So that I am super excited about. And if you can't make it, you can still subscribe to the Patreon and see the recording. I'm also going to do some polling inside the Patreon to find out like when is the best time to host those bonus events so that I can catch the most people. Also, the Patreon, my favorite part is that you can subscribe for literally $1 a month. So I want people to feel like they can be a part of this. I want it to be 100% accessible. If you want to be there, I want you there. It goes up as high as you want to go. And if you need a suggestion, I would say like $5 a month is fair. Guaranteed one event. Usually I'm guessing there will be at least one bonus event. So that's just a little bit about that. Maddie put the link there for the Patreon where you can go and learn more about signing up for that if you would like. Okay, let's see. Let's start with the Mercury and just kind of wrap that up since we kind of already got into that. And then we'll cover so many other good things. Okay, so okay, so like I said, today, February 11th, Mercury is conjunct Pluto at 27 degrees of Capricorn. And this is the third time that it's been conjunct. So we could work backwards on the dates to find the first 2 times, but essentially Mercury is the way that we process the world. And I'm going to go a little deeper into that because Mercury is one of my personal faves. So we're just going to spend some time just for the fun of it. And then Pluto is more our subconscious and more specifically our wounding inside our subconscious. So when you put Mercury and Pluto together, it's like your wounded patterns of thought that are driven by your subconscious, where that got in there at some point in your journey and it stuck for whatever reason. Most likely there was fear or other strong emotion tied to it. And now that pattern of thought is burned into your filter, the way that you see the world, the way that you understand things, and the way that you pay attention. That's what Mercury is representing. So when Mercury and Pluto come together, which happens at least once a year, this year, the retrograde, that's why it went back and forth over the same point. So that seems extra meaningful as far as everything else that's going on in Capricorn right now. But that's 3 different opportunities to basically have a spotlight shined on what patterns of thought are coming out of a wounded place, out of a fearful place. And it's very interesting when you get into Mercury and you really go into the depths of it. It's like how much of what happens in your brain is essentially happening on autopilot. Like you don't really choose your thoughts. Mostly, most people don't. And that's kind of like a law of attraction, conscious creation type practice that lots of people engage in. And we can talk all about that. I have a law of attraction live stream that's totally free to attend. That's happening on the Leo full moon, which, was not accidental. So that'll be next Wednesday at 10 a.m., the same time that this one started. So classic Gemini, you start free associating because everything's connected to everything else. And then you lose track of like, where did I even come from? Hard to say. Oh my goodness. My husband has this natally, Mercury conjunct Pluto. Well, and like Pluto, so Pluto is said to be like our wounding that came from a past life. It's like wounding that we already possessed deep in our psyche, like in our soul, from what we lived before. And that was, healing work that we brought with us, homework that we brought with us to do during this lifetime. It was one of the main reasons we wanted another lifetime, was because this thing needs healed. So that's Pluto, like in everybody's chart. And so if you're living with Mercury Pluto, it's like your whole life would be figuring out those wounded patterns of thought that are coming from like that deep wounded psyche, like from past lives. Like I would imagine that it might even like what's it called, QHHT, that hypnosis thing, where you go into deep trance and work through some past life things and like open the door to that. Yeah, Mercury in general, I'm going to get into that. Let me look at Monica's question. Thank you so much, Monica. Mercury, Sun, Venus, all in Gemini in the first house for me. So Monica, I also have the Mercury, Sun, and Venus all in Gemini. Mine aren't in the first house, so I'm going to try to be careful not to project my second and third house placements onto your first house placement. But first of all, when you have Mercury and Venus in the same sign as your sun, I find this incredibly fascinating because the sun, it moves 1 degree per day. It never goes backwards. It just always goes forwards. And Mercury moves so fast. So does Venus. They move faster than the sun, but they have to keep pace with the sun. So they have their retrograde periods going on. And so because of all of that, Mercury can only be in the sign that the sun is in, or the sign before, or the sign after. And then Venus can be up to 2 signs away. So like, if the sun is in Gemini, the Venus could be Cancer or Leo, or it could be Taurus or Aries. So Venus has a wider berth. So I find it really interesting, like, just looking at that little combination of those 3 placements. And when you have the sun, Mercury, and Venus all in the same sign, there is something that happens. It is a powerful cohesion around your sun. It's like backup it instantly for your sun's purpose. And like the sun in our chart is like the core of our essence. It's the light that we came here to shine. So when you have those personal planets, Mercury and Venus, your daily energy, the way you interact with the world, when you have them in the same sign as your sun, that's just like super powerful. So for anybody that has that configuration where they're all 3 together, there's a cohesion of purpose. There's like the sun being your purpose, the light you came to shine. That's kind of one side of it. Mercury being the way that we're seeing the world, the way that we are wired to pay attention to the world. And then Venus is our value system and how we decide what's important and how we give time to our priorities. And so when you have your mindset, your priorities, and your purpose all lined up in the same sign, it's like a triple whammy of whatever the highest frequency of that sign, whatever is possible. And Gemini is the messenger of the gods. Gemini is open in its highest frequency. It is completely unbiased and it is open to whatever is being presented in the moment. Gemini is a brilliant listener. Gemini can run other people's energy through their system without imposing their own biases and limitations onto it. And then their openness of like not really needing to know the answer, of just loving good questions, allows the truth to come through. So that's where the messenger of the gods part comes in, especially Mercury in Gemini, but really here where you have Mercury, Sun, and Venus all in Gemini. Mercury, the gods, and that begins with listening. It begins with being able to hear, like, what is the other person really trying to communicate? So there's like a lot of listening intuitively between the lines, not just what they're saying, but the energy, their body language, their tone of voice, how this compares to other communications you've received from them. There's so much going on inside that listening process where you're consciously and subconsciously taking in a lot of data. And that's ultimately, I have a floof on my nose there. I finally got it. Nice. Now I itch it. Okay, good. That's what Mercury represents in our chart overall, is how are you wired to pay attention? What are you what are you wired to be curious about? And that our Mercury also represents our natural voice. So if you want to be heard, if you want to be listened to and taken seriously, then you have to communicate through your natal Mercury placement. That's where your natural voice is. That's the voice that's connected to your heart and your soul. And when you speak from your heart and soul, people listen. And we all have a different way of doing that, you know, depending, thank you so much, Sunny, depending on what, yeah, depending on what sign and house your Mercury is placed in, those are the things that you're going to be naturally curious about. You're going to pay more attention to those things. And because you're paying attention to that, because you're curious, you'll have questions, you'll want to learn about those things. And then once you learn, Mercury, again, is the messenger of the gods. There's a communication piece that comes next that is, it's usually the part that people know about Gemini, is that they talk a lot, but the part that happens during the listening, the inside, like interior alchemical process that happens when you take in somebody else's expression and then allow the truth to flow through you in regards to whatever they're offering. Like there's a way of like just channeling divine truth openly. And that's I think possible for all of us. Mercury itself is the messenger of the gods. So no matter what sign your Mercury is in, you can do this. But it means like really grounding into, what are you curious about? What is it that you're naturally drawn to learn about? And so think about like Mercury and Scorpio. That person has a very different view of the world, where death is just more accepted, most likely. It's just kind of a reality. Fear is likely a more common player in a lot of things, like either like a rejection of other people's fear or like an overemphasis of your own fear. It can like manifest in lots of different ways. Fear is just kind of a guy that's sitting at the table. If your Mercury's in Scorpio, for example. So it's like kind of, you have to tune into wherever that Mercury is. It's a piece of the path into connecting to your heart and soul. And this is a great time to be having this conversation, not only with Mercury sitting right next to Pluto right now, but also the full moon in Leo that's coming up. And we're going to talk more about that here when we get to it next. So this is an idea that I've explained in the North Node videos. I personally believe it applies to basically every planet in transit. So I'm going to try to explain it here too. So basically, like Mercury is transiting through each sign in about 3 weeks. If it goes retrograde in that sign, it can be there for more like 6 weeks, maybe even 7 or 8, I think. Longer if it goes retrograde in that sign. And I had something. Oh, here we go. Okay. So each of these transits, they happen really quickly. So it's kind of hard to feel their impact. they happen on small little changes, small changes that are accomplishable in 3 weeks, 3 to 6 weeks, right? And in the grand scheme of things, that's hardly anything. But every single one of these chapters right now, Mercury in Capricorn, for example, building that skill set and being with that energy of Mercury and Capricorn, the goal is to ultimately build up your own natal Mercury placement. So just like I'm doing with the North Node transit of like, how can each natal North Node get the most out of this North Node transit through Taurus? How can working with that energy help you do your natal placement? We can do that on any transit, I think. So right now, Mercury in Capricorn, if you have that natally, then you're having like your Mercury return, basically. But all of us are working with this energy of Mercury in Capricorn, where it's a very serious minded placement. It's paying attention to priorities and effectiveness, and like, is what you're doing working to accomplish your goal? That's what we're just naturally looking at right now. It's the way that our mind is influenced to pay attention based on where Mercury is in the sky right now. And so like, even, for example, my Mercury is in Gemini. This transit of Mercury through Capricorn has been so helpful and necessary to bring some clarity to what's really important. And, my Mercury in Gemini has a million ideas all the time. It's one of my greatest gifts, that there's no shortage of ideas coming through the old noggin. But as you can imagine, focus can be a little hard to come by. Prioritization can be a little hard to come by. I can just let myself scatter into a million different directions, and then making progress on any one of them, it just is a slow going thing. So this Mercury and Capricorn experience, these, it was here, it went into Aquarius for a little while, and then it came back into Capricorn, and we're having this revisiting of, again, what is important to you, and how are you spending your energy and your time, and is it working? Is it effective? Is it sustainable? Are you building something that really matters? We're getting into Mars and Venus also being in Capricorn. That's another thing that we're going to talk about, where, yeah, it's a time of like being really real with ourselves, like decision-making time, like, what truly matters to you? What are you willing to commit to making happen? And what isn't worth it? And when you make commitments, you're naturally deselecting all of the other things that you didn't commit to. And that's where my Mercury and Gemini can really struggle to trim it back, right? I want to do everything. This Mercury and Capricorn transit for me has been like, yes, I know, but for right now, for this short period of time, we have to make this commitment to doing this, where we focus in on this one project, and we're going to just decide that we're going to make that commitment. And Mercury and Gemini, you will be limited for just a little while, but this is the bigger picture of what we're deciding to do. So that's been my experience. I have a work project that is due at the end of June that I've had since the beginning of July. I got a year to do it, and it's taken me down to now, where I realize, like, I have roughly at least 12 or 13 weeks of work to do to get it finished, and I have 17 weeks left to do it. So that's very little wiggle room. And this whole Mercury and Capricorn thing is like kind of like a shit or get off the pot type thing. Like, are you committed to this or not? And if you're not, that's no problem. Let's be honest with it and open that space back up to whatever you do want to commit to. But it's a time of our entire mindset kind of getting imbued with that Capricorn essence of, does this serve the great work that I'm really trying to accomplish? That's been my experience anyway. So I'm very much focusing on listening more than talking. I have Mercury in Taurus, and I am obsessed with ASMR. I recently found this like chalk crushing ASMR that's like, I'll have to I don't think I've ever sent one to Maddie. Otherwise, I'd have her put the link in there for me. But I'll have to remember to put one in after. But it's just so relaxing. It's so simple. I think this is how, okay, so I had a little bit more about that Mercury Pluto connection that's happening like right now today. And that is that it is that conjunction in Capricorn is talking to the nodes, the North Node and South Node in Taurus and Scorpio. And this Pluto Mercury conjunction in Capricorn that's letting us see like our limiting patterns of belief, the way that we're operating out of fear, all of that. That trine that it's making to the North Node is pushing the energy, encouraging the energy towards Taurus. So I love that you brought that up as far as ASMR, because like when you sit there and you watch some random person on the internet crush chalk for like 30 minutes, it like does something. It lowers my blood pressure. It makes all feel right in the world. Like there's no bad. There's nothing bad happening. There's just like this little crumble thing. Oh, there's a piece and we're going to crumble that. And the way it just falls apart. It's so soothing. Whatever kind of soothing videos you like to watch, Taurus would watch a lot of soothing videos and spend their time, prioritize that time into being able to calm yourself down. And that's another thing that I'm realizing, kind of going back to what I was talking about earlier with the South Node transiting through Scorpio, is like this is a time of your fears and the things that were previously too painful to face coming back around. And how do you face painful things? And the answer to any of the water energy, that how you ground water energy, is back into earth energy. So as these Scorpio shadows are coming up and bubbling to the surface, it's Taurus that takes us by the hand and says, we know what real security is. We know where our security comes from. We can feel the connection with our spiritual support. We know how to, we've built coping skills to like actually calm our physical vessel in any moment. And ASMR is a huge one of those for me. And it's one of those things that like YouTube suggested it for me. And those little methods of receiving abundance are right up there for me as far as like my heavy Taurus energy. And also my second house, Venus and Mercury in Gemini. The most valuable things that we can receive are information that let us feel our own security and divinity more deeply, in my opinion. And money can't even buy that, you know? Like some of the best information I've ever learned, I learned it for free. It only cost me my time. And that is what this era, this Taurus North Node transit, is really all about. Like, what's truly important to you? And for me, feeling good, feeling secure, knowing that all is well, being able to come from a place of like knowing that I'm okay and the world is okay and everything is always working out for us. I want to be able to know that like in my bones. That's my most important goal. And this North Node transit through Taurus, it is giving me these moments of shadow bubbling up. And what is really ending up happening is my Taurus energy gets to like flex its muscles almost and be like, we know how to find security. We know how to be at peace. And even when the physical environment doesn't condone your peace, you can still find it inside of yourself. And I think that's like the master level of this North Node through Taurus transit, is it will be hard. Like scary freaking things come to the surface where your instant reaction is fear, panic, terror, like any of those. But you're not the same person you were back then, you know? There's almost like a, well, Scorpio can get enmeshed with other people's energy. So there's like a victim, how do I want to put that? like maybe somewhat feeling like your healing is like tied in with another person and what they're doing, and that they need to be a certain way and that their energy needs to be a certain way so that you can achieve a certain vibration. And so like anytime we've ever done that in the past, where we let somebody have whatever vibration and we let that control our vibration, we let their negative energy set our tone, and we didn't do anything about it. Like, you know, and it could have been just minor at the time, maybe not minor, but like not the end of the world. And so it's like, yeah, I don't really want to, you know, stand in my own power and flex my muscles. Like, I'll just let this go and like whatever, just get along and maintain harmony with other people's energy. And this is a season for not having that outcome. Like when other people show up and they have things that go against what you know to be true, what you feel in terms of, you feel your power rise up inside of you naturally because you can feel what's right, you can feel what's true for you. And yeah, I mean, I have to thank the people who trigger that Scorpio South Node experience for me, you know, and again, like not forgive them, but just thank them. I genuinely appreciate being shown where I'm still not fully standing in my power. And I mean, that's life. Like I say all the time, like money we can't take with us, but spiritual development goes with us. It goes with us from lifetime to lifetime. Like I am not the same person, not the same soul I was when I was born. I've gone through iteration after iteration of development. And someday when I'm done in this vessel and I transition back to spirit form, um, I'll be different. I'll be a different soul than the last time I was non-physical. And then I go into a different vessel and I don't start at the same starting point. Like these experiences where we reclaim parts of our soul and reintegrate it into ourselves, that work stays with us for an eternity. I think that's kind of the whole point of life and reincarnation and separating from source to begin with, only to work through the process of re-emerging into source energy and like interconnectedness and the unity between all things. So yeah, it's this is such good times. Mm. Oh my. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to talk about with Mercury. That push towards the North Node, the way that, that's, I do want to say one more thing about this Pluto Mercury conjunction is also sextiling the South Node. So it's sextiling the South Node, trining the North Node. Both of those are favorable, harmonious aspects that are helpful energies. And I want to say just a little bit about the depth of manifestation and how you can manifest something that on the surface looks awful. It looks scary. It looks like this is a bad, quote unquote, manifestation. This is negative. I would never want this. You can manifest something seemingly unwanted. And as you walk the journey that it unfolds in your world, you can realize that actually this was simply an invitation. I mean, it was maybe in a scary package, but it was just an invitation to walk this path. And the path itself is actually quite lovely. And that realization was huge for me on the whole Scorpio South Node end of things, and the Taurus end of things, like in terms of coming up with your idea of like, what is really important to you? What truly matters to you? And me enjoying my life. That's pretty important to me. Me connecting with my true sense of inner security that has nothing to do with what anybody else is doing. That's really important to me. So when I receive a manifestation that at first glance is hairy and ugly and nobody would want to live that I could feel it right off the bat. It was very weird because it's such a weird sensation of, sure, there's fear present, but there's also this knowing that was bigger than that was like, but this kind of stuff doesn't happen to me. You know, like this is so abnormal. This is so far outside the realm of what I normally typically manifest. So there must be something in it. There must be something to this path that it has something for me. And it wasn't very long at all before it flashed back into my mind what I had said in the North Node in Taurus video about, like, anybody that's holding even a little bit of your power has to come back so that you can recognize that they had your power and you can reclaim it from them and put it back inside yourself. And now you're operating with more of your power than you had before. I gave that prediction, and here I am, like living the real life version of what that looks like. And it's so crazy how, yeah, how something that looks so awful at first glance really wasn't. It wasn't. Like the Taurus end of it was there to support me. The claiming my own power and feeling my boundary, like that was just so clear to me that I had never gotten to see my own boundary that clearly before. And again, you think about, like, when it comes to boundaries, we really can't do boundary work all by ourselves. Like, I think maybe, yeah, you can kind of practice that just with setting limits with yourself, that you're not allowed to treat yourself a certain way. But really, like, when it comes time to test, like, how good are your boundaries, another person has to be present to help bring that manifestation into fruition. So, yeah, it's like, wow, you got to be thankful for the troublemakers that help you reclaim your power. Without them, I mean, without them showing back up, without them getting whatever crazy idea popped into their head, like without that, I mean, my power would still just be floating around out there and I would be operating with less than my full power. And so it can be however we choose to look at it. And when you're mostly vibrating in that 5D space of high vibrations, resonating with the interconnectedness of all things, resonating in love and compassion for all things, when you manifest something that at first glance looks really rough, I would say give it a minute and see if it doesn't unfold into something that is actually kind of magical, that doesn't lead you into a place where you can do your soul's work in an even more powerful way. I mean, that experience that I went through this week, it has solidified me inside my Taurus in a way where this is stronger in my Taurus energy than I've ever been. Um, and that's really exciting. Taurus is my Jupiter. Taurus is my rising sign. So I'm like, whoa, what's going to happen when here I am, like super strong in this energy, and I'm here thanks to someone who showed up and honestly was just not feeling good. Like couldn't have been feeling good to do what they did. And that side of it just like gives me an instant sense of compassion for the other, for anybody who is still in a place where their inner world is a nightmare to live in. I've been there. I've lived in a nightmarish inner world where I escaped my inner world at all costs because it was so painful to be in there. And to see the evidence that someone is there right now, it makes me send love out through my heart to them and anybody else who is in that place. Um, I would never, I mean, like literally, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And yeah, so anybody who's there, it's like, I just want them to feel better. So I feel like it's a good example of, as we're in this time of, as Pam Gregory calls it, the 3D is collapsing, the 5D is being born. It's totally possible that as we go through this transition, that the 3D is going to bubble up and it's going to like exert what little power it has. And we, as the new beings who we've evolved into at this point, we receive that shadow from a new vantage point where we're anchored in our Taurus sense of security. We're anchored in our own knowing of our self-worth and our value. And we trust the goodness of our own heart. And because of that, the shadow, I mean, it's it's like a pea shooter and a freight train, like, how do you heal the shadow? How do you balance this South Node through Scorpio? It's like that Taurus energy, that dominant stability in knowing your own goodness. That's how you can look at the shadow and say, I can see that you're here and I can feel the pain that was once really dominant with you. And that's why I wasn't able to work through this before. But now here I am with this new strength coming out of the Taurus end of things that says, I'm good no matter what. I'm worthy because I exist. So that gives me this new foundation to look at just about anything with kinder eyes, softer, gentler, more loving eyes that say, like, it's all just for our evolution anyway. So having the space to give to ourselves to be with our shadow whenever it comes to call, like, it's so it's so random how you can be vibing in such a good place and like everything is magic, and all of a sudden, like, bam, here's this manifestation that doesn't look like that. And the best part of it was how quickly I realized, on the surface, I know it doesn't look like what I normally manifest, but I know law of attraction says, like, I mean, you can really only manifest from your point of attraction. So I manifest lovely things mostly. So even though this doesn't look like that, I don't know, there's part of me that thinks it probably still is. Maybe. Is that possible for something to be ugly on the outside and lovely on the inside? Yeah. Yeah, it is. So I hope that like plants just a little seed for any shadow that is coming up in your world at this time. Um, we have almost a year and a half left of South Node moving through Scorpio. So these little fragments of our power coming back. And this time specifically, where Mercury conjunct Pluto is showing us our own fearful patterns of thought that are manifesting these kinds of things in the first place. And so that has been the biggest part of this healing for me. And healing is, oh, that was like, felt like a whole well that just opened up down that way. It's such an optional thing. Like, healing our spirit is something that each of us is individually responsible for. It's a relationship that we each get to have between us and ourselves. And it's really not worth the energy to judge anybody where they're at on their path. We can only ever choose our path and how we show up inside our world. So it's very interesting when this manifestation happens and how quickly I realized this probably isn't as bad as it seems. And two, that there's probably something in this for me. Yes, there absolutely was. And three, I got to gratitude like so fast that this manifestation is helping me to find this clarity. So all of this is shadow work, in my opinion. Shadow work's one of those things where I feel like it's not like exactly a regulated industry. So there's probably a ton of different definitions out there. But I think this act of being aware of a negative manifestation that came up while I'm living a happily ever after day, bam, here's this moment. And shadow work is about being mindful of what's possible when you observe negative emotions. Emotions are messengers. They have something to tell us. And if there's something negative that comes up, there's something inside of us that's ready to be healed. And I again feel incredibly grateful that my healing is being supported by someone who, you know, at this stage, they would probably say they don't like me very much. And is that what's really important? I used to think that, yeah, I mean, I don't want to upset anybody. I don't want anybody to be mad at me or to not like me or anything like that. Like, it used to be very important to me that I didn't upset anybody's apple cart. And at this point, like Maddie was telling me the other day about, I think, was it Jonathan Van Ness, maybe, about, he said something like, I'm not trying to trigger people, but if I'm following what my truth is and they witness it and they get triggered, that's their journey. That's what they needed in that moment. And I really am trying to like integrate that for myself, to try to know that, like, on a default type level. Thank you. Yeah, I want to know that people's reaction to me is none of my business, that people's behavior is none of my business, that we only ever attract out of our point of attraction. And like my spiritual support told me, like, if somebody was really trying to hurt me, we would just take you to Topeka and get you some Starbucks. Like, it's not difficult. We do it all day long. We guide you all day long. We put ideas in your head that drive your path all day long. We got you covered. The only thing that manifests, you know, bad things, like showing up in your life, like in a real physical escalating type way, is the rumble strips happened and we keep on going. And now it's a rougher and rougher and rougher ride. And that was ultimately what popped up in that moment, was like, in that manifestation, it was so similar to something that had happened like 15 months prior to that. And in the moment when it happened, my knee-jerk response to it was so different than the way that I responded to it 15 months ago. And in the knee-jerk reaction being so different, there was a secondary like witnessing of, look how far I've come. Holy crap. Like, back then, my boundary was, I mean, silly string, like just I mean, it's a toy, it's not real. It's like they crossed it and I guess I'm just gonna sit here and, you know, like hope that they don't do it again. Like, that was essentially my plan of attack. And this time, it was like a hard no. Like, not anger, not anything like really even that uncomfortable, just like a simple knowing of, no, that my boundary's way back over there and you've came really far past it, and just no, we're not going to do that. You're not going to talk to me like that. That's just not how it's going to go. And I have all the same options this time as I did 15 months ago. And this time I exercised those options without even thinking twice. I stood in my power without even thinking twice. And that's not who I was 15 months ago. And so again, this troublemaker shows up to help me see how far I've come. And that just, how can you not say thank you to those people who help you know yourself better like that? It's just, you know, it's part of life. I think you're right. I think I used to be so scared to push boundaries sometimes or things like that because I didn't want anyone to get upset with me. That is exactly how I was. But I think there is a time and a place where you can push back on things, which is what I did right now, which is, oh, that's awesome. Maybe it was the other person's karma. I really don't know, but I choose love and light. And that, yeah, like, the other person's karma. Like, it's so, I'm getting a ringing in my ear right now. That's like, yes, exactly. Like, this whole conversation has been leading to this right here. It's so bizarre to think that, like, you know, while I'm over here, like, sending light to my troublemaker, I don't know this, but I'll bet you they think I'm their troublemaker, right? Like it's an exchange. It's like when Abraham talks about like law of attraction and how it works and how like attracts like and how, like bullies and victims naturally come together. And that's a hard pill to swallow if you feel like you've been the victim, at least, especially more than once, which again is where I am. Like I had a tendency to just be the victim. And there was part of me that was almost more comfortable there. Like at least I knew how to be that. And it led to lots of destructive behaviors over my life. And now there has just been this gradual development of my personal power. And that has been life changing and life saving in a very profound way, where I'm not the victim of anybody. Like, no, I am creating my own reality. I'm a deliberate creator. I cultivate my inner world and I let my outer world reflect it. And so even in this moment where I manifest something that on the surface is very harsh, getting into it, even just a few minutes, I find love, I find support, I find other people affirming my security, other people adding to my security, other people affirming that my intuitive read on the situation is right on. Like the path just yielded this to me without me trying to find those things. And so it's like, yeah, that person who delivered the manifestation, they really don't matter to, like, not that they don't matter, they matter, they're a soul on this planet and they matter, but in terms of me and my journey and my healing, they're just a messenger. Like I don't take it personally that they really have this issue with me. I'm triggering them to heal. And sometimes the first step of healing is to feel really, really bad. And I think they're there, like I feel for them. I've been there in the times when it's like basically hate is a powerful spiritual awakener, because when you hate someone powerfully, like when it gets strong enough, there's a part of you that's bigger than that knows this is not who I am. That's how I woke up, was jealousy / something that probably resembled hatred towards somebody that had nothing to do with anything. And because I felt that strong emotion, I woke up to realizing this is not me. And then it's been a process of letting the Scorpio side of it, let those shadows come to the surface and use our tools, whatever coping skills we've built for ourselves so far, and get what we can out of it and be open to the universal support that can come through the most random, places. Oh, my big three are I'm a Gemini sun, a Leo moon, and a Taurus rising. Yes. Let's see. So I think that's good. That was what I wanted to cover, was this Mercury Pluto conjunction is communicating with the nodes, and that is creating this push to free ourselves from our past fearful ways of thinking. And to do that, we are pushing ourselves into that Taurus space where our ability to self-soothe reigns supreme. Nothing that anybody can do on the outside can touch that place of inner stillness that you're able to cultivate inside you. And all it takes is a little bit of practice, a little bit of Taurus, deliberate, one step at a time, one stubborn pursuit of peace, like one day at a time, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, maybe for the rest of your life. But like, would you rather get more peaceful on the inside or more afraid? Like, our human existence is such that we don't ever just stay still. Evolution is inevitable. So you're getting more of something, right? So it's like either practice the Taurus end or the Scorpio end just works on you. And that's why I say, and it's a nice way to say it, that my fear has been more available to me. That's a really nice way of saying, like, I'm more paranoid, I'm a little more touchy, I'm a little more like just afraid in general of like monsters under the bed kind of shit. That's like I mean, when I was small, and I'm going to use that generously because I think I had this fear, maybe even a little bit still do, but for sure into my mid 20s, I watched the movie It when I was small, like 4 or 5 years old. My dad watched it and he let me watch it with him. And it is a clown that like lives in the sewer. And I developed this fear that just was like imprinted into my subconscious that was like, if you flush the toilet in the dark, the clown, his hand is going to come up out of the toilet through the portal of it flushing. I don't know if that's even a thing. It's going to come up out of there and it's going to get you. So, to combat this fear, when you flush the toilet in the dark, one, try to avoid this at all costs. And two, you have to run. You have to run away from the toilet. So I operated this way, I'm going to say from like age 5 to like 25. Like, these are the kinds of irrational fears that you feel stupid as hell to try to face this shit, to try to like process this shadow. But it's like, that's what's in there. It's usually irrational. It usually got imprinted at such an early time that like it seemed really scary at the time. It made perfect sense to my 4-year-old self that it is gonna clearly like come up out and grab me and pull me back in, that I would fit through the toilet. Like, just now, of course, it looks silly, but at the time it didn't. And that's a fun example. It's funny, I think, but it also is very real because I think like our fear is more available to us right now. Like, it's just a little more present in everything, it seems like just a more a more present person sitting at the table. Like, typically when we talk about our shadow, it's like those are the pieces of yourself that you took and like locked down in the basement, that like you either hurt me, or I'm embarrassed of you, I'm ashamed of you, I did something bad, I regret that. So like that's all the stuff that like it's just really too hard to feel it. So we shove that away. That's what ends up in our shadow. It's like that stuff gets locked in the basement. South Node through Scorpio is like freaking just somebody opened the goddamn door and now it's like all up out and it's in your house and it's at the table and it's with you in the shower. When you close your eyes, you're just a little more like, it's just, my fear is like right there, it feels like. And that's all I can really attribute it to, is this South Node through Scorpio bringing those things to the surface so that that Taurus end can respond with our new coping skills, our new ability to soothe ourselves. I mean, so emotional in general, I think. Like, it's just a lot. Pennywise is very scary. Thank you, Maddie. Yes. Is it just so freaking creepy? So. And is that in tropical? I'm guessing you're at maybe about my big three. And yes, those are my tropical big three. I don't think I know my other ones, like for Vedic or whatever. You guys, I need to take a bathroom break. So I'm going to go off camera for like 3 minutes. And then I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about Mars and Venus, which shouldn't take long. And then the full moon in Leo, which is just, going to be life-changing for, I think, a good big chunk of us. So yeah, I will be back in 3 minutes. think that was 3 minutes, but it was enough. So, yeah. There we go. Yeah. Emotions overflowing. Me too. I feel very connected to my shadow, and that's kind of where I started, was like I feel like the number of people who are experiencing their shadows rising to the surface is pushing more people into wanting to figure out how to feel stable and secure in the middle of feeling your shadow. So like I just feel like it's divine timing that this place where we can openly discuss shadow work, that this is forming like right before our eyes kind of thing, that the events are almost like scheduling themselves at this point. That's ultimately what I'm trying to let happen, is just like let the unfolding happen. Um, while also taking charge, which definitely brings us to Mars and Venus in Capricorn. So Mars and Venus come conjunct once a year, thereabouts. I think for sure every once every year and a half, based on how fast they both move. And this is exceptionally rare that they are conjunct uh, almost today. I mean, I think right now they're only like a degree apart, but here in a couple days it'll be like exact, where they are exactly at the same degree point. And then they'll stay conjunct like within a degree of each other for like 4 weeks. So that is very rare. So again, coming back to all of these things that are so rare are happening like all in this one little short span of time. And it's like these are times of pushing that change forward. And so, like we talked briefly about this last week, but Mars and Venus are part of the archetypes for divine masculine and divine feminine. Venus is feminine, Mars is masculine. So when you see that they come together, like into a conjunction, and then walk hand in hand for over a month thereabouts, like that's just literally can be translated as our individual masculine energies and feminine energies are coming together in this harmonious way and supporting all of the work that has already been going on these last few months with Venus retrograde and Venus conjunct Pluto, Mercury conjunct Pluto, Mercury retrograde. All of that has brought so much to the surface for us to get clear in this Capricorn energy of what is our great work, what is our legacy that we're trying to create in the physical world to leave behind when we're gone, and to get really serious about showing up in the world like that. Like even when maybe you're a little bit scared or it's something that you've never done before, there's risk involved. Mars getting into Capricorn and then especially syncing up with Venus, it's like that's really the push of courage and fire to go after prioritizing what it is that you want to create. And like we talked about a little bit, when we prioritize stuff, we automatically opt out of other things. Like cultivating the ability to say no feels very Capricornian to me, like in its highest vibration. Capricorn is kind of immune to distraction, where it's like, this is my priority, this is my goal, this is what I want to accomplish. And then when things pop up over here, it's like easy to evaluate that isn't that. So I'm not going to put my effort into that thing. I'm putting my effort here. So that's where all of this Capricorn energy, it's like such a period of getting clear about who is it that you want to show up in the world as. And the universe understands like you aren't that person yet. That's the whole point. Who is it that you're like trying to step forward as going forward? Who is it that is the person, the version of you that is capable of living your great work? How do you show up like that? And this Mars Venus conjunction through the rest of Capricorn, so they'll go conjunct to Pluto. This will be the third time that Venus has been conjunct with Pluto this last few months, and Mars will be right there with her. So they'll do that at the same time. So again, this is like one final push of basically you're a new person now than you were last time this happened, which would have been like mid-December was the yeah, thereabouts was the last time that Venus was conjunct with Pluto. So that version of you like kind of no longer exists. You've evolved since then with all of this work that's been coming up and clarity around our values and what's important and our self-worth and where does our security really come from. You've made progress. We all have. And now this last time, it's like Venus is going to come conjunct with Pluto one more time so that any limiting patterns around our self-worth can bubble to the surface. And now we're crossing through them with Mars with us, that inner warrior, that divine masculine, that strength, that ability to stand our ground. We have not only what we want and what's important to us, what we desire, but also the fortitude and the strength to like charge into battle if necessary and like assert what we want into the world. That going through Pluto, it's like I see it almost as like a slaying of dragons. Like to slay dragons, you have to come face to face with dragons and then you slay them and then you go down in the history books for slaying dragons. Like it's like that. So yeah, as much as we can, love on the dragon, love on the troublemaker, as far as like they are helping. They play a critical role to the process and we couldn't do it without them. So I have a feeling that this is something of like a graduation almost, because Venus has been in Capricorn since the beginning of November. So all of November, all of December, it came conjunct with Pluto. The second time was like, I think Christmas Eve. Like this has been an intense few months of our value system clashing with other people who are holding our power, that Pluto, that woundedness, that feeling like we're the victim when we only ever manifest out of our point of attraction. So if we're being victimized, our point of attraction needs some tweaking. So yeah, this time of Venus and Mars moving back through these degrees of Capricorn where Venus has already been, there's this mastery of getting to see the strength that you've really cultivated, the clarity that helps it just be so easy when you're clear on your goal, like this is what I'm doing, and then something over here pops up, it's like not a big deal at all because this is what I'm doing. I already committed to this. Like commit to, that's that Capricorn side, I feel like, of committing to what's truly important, committing to showing up in the world as that person. And then it's like the things that come up, it's like that commitment is a decision-making tool, essentially. Like I'm committed to reaching this goal. So if these other things come up, either they align with that commitment or they don't. And let the Venus part being involved is Venus rules Taurus. So that was another piece that I wanted to go through, that again, these Venus Mars energies, when they come conjunct with Pluto, they'll also be trining the North Node and sextiling the South Node. So it'll make that same arrangement as what Mercury's in right now, here in just a couple weeks. And all of this is like pointing us back to that Taurus energy of our values and what's important to us. And basically what somebody was going through, how like the ruler of the Taurus North Node is Venus, because Venus rules Taurus, and the ruler of the Scorpio South Node is either Mars or Pluto, depending on how you're looking at ancient or modern rulership. So you have the ruler of the North and South Node conjunct Venus and Mars in Capricorn, plus they're making their way to Pluto, which is the other ruler of the Scorpio South Node. So you have all three rulers of these nodes of fate in Capricorn right now. And we're being pushed to look at like, what is the work that is truly important in this life? It is only forwards. Time is our most valuable asset. How are you investing your time on a daily basis? And is it getting you the results that you want? Is it effective? And this is a time where we've gotten a lot more clear on that. And these last little bits of Venus and Mars moving through Capricorn feel like it is most likely going to be somewhat of a bumpy ride, but that these manifestations will be those things that help you realize like how focused you really are on what actually matters to you. That like they help you see that you have decided, you have committed, even if it wasn't a conscious process. You're not going to let these things worry you or bother you because you need to devote your energy to what you've already committed to. So that, again, it's a helpful manifestation. It might look a little rough in the short term, but it really is what needs to happen just so that we can be shown our own strength. Like when we manifest opposition, we're actually manifesting someone who's helping us to stand up in our power in a way that we've never done before. And it can be so easy to blame your opposition for, victimizing you. And I've been there, and I've struggled in that hamster wheel of feeling like that, where you're powerless and there's nothing you can do about it. And this is a cycle of realizing that is not true. We are all deeply powerful. And the only thing that ever keeps us from exercising that is like a fear of something. I mean, for each of us, it's different. And for me, a big one was fear of upsetting people. And so here I am, like upsetting people and having that manifestation of them being upset with me, which I used to think was like the worst thing that could ever happen. And all it's doing is helping me realize, yeah, that does need reprioritized, because I am more okay with upsetting people than I thought. Depending on what it is that they're saying, depending on why they're upset. Like if they're just triggered and they're having a shadow work moment of their own, like that's not my business. If they're saying that I was disrespectful or I approached something in a closed-minded way, or I'm missing a side of something, or, they're trying to open my mind and teach me something, like I'm here for that. I'm right there. But yeah, sometimes people, like this goes back to developing our Capricorn energy and that Capricorn side of like letting people feel how they're going to feel, doing what's right for you and what you know to be true and good, and letting people feel how they're going to feel about that. And sometimes they're going to need to feel bad. That's just where they are on their journey. So being okay with that, that's brand new territory for me personally, to let people be upset if that's where they are, and to use that to develop an even deeper trust in my own goodness, because that's ultimately what is being strengthened. And that gets me through those moments, is knowing that like my intentions are full of love. So my heart is full of love. Every bit of my work flows through that filter. So if somebody's upset by it, that must be what they need. Like the only thing I put in there was love. And if they're experiencing something different, that's okay. I'm okay with that. I don't try to trigger people, but I'm okay if they get triggered. I'm trying to channel my inner Jonathan Van Ness. Yeah. So I think that's pretty good for Mars and Venus. They will both together enter Aquarius on March 6th. So that Venus will have spent all of November, December, January, February. So like 4 months in Capricorn. So this time, it's so crazy. That's where the Mercury and Venus retrogrades happening at the same time, Pluto being in the mix, like these energies pushing us towards the Taurus North Node and developing our sense of inner security no matter what's going on in the outside world. These experiences are not for nothing. They are deeply healing. They are helping us to see our shadow more clearly. And the 5D, like where we talk about the 3D is collapsing, the 5D is being born. In the 5D, we are deeply secure. We are rooted in our spiritual support system. There is no like real fear. There's no like physical harm even that comes to people, because that comes out of fear, right? Usually it's like even the nicest dog will bite you if its leg is stuck in a trap. That's usually why people are acting out, because they're hurting on the inside. And in 5D, we all know how to take responsibility for our emotions. We have coping skills. We know how to lean into self-soothing. We know how to work with our shadow and to learn from it and integrate those pieces back into ourselves. When somebody else provokes a bad feeling response inside of us, we turn inward and we take ownership of that. That's how life is in the 5D realm. And so that's something that's like open and available to us right now. That's something that like already exists. And that's what this community, this new group of people who has gathered here around this channel is proving to me, that there are already so many people vibrating here. Like there are 20 people watching this right now, that like there are already so many people who feel this interconnectedness and feel this relationship with our shadow, feel this deep sense of personal empowerment. And that's ultimately what this Capricorn energy is getting at, is like basically becoming our own leader, becoming our own empowered guide in this world, getting to be our own decision maker. And for too long, we have blindly put our faith and our trust in elected officials, other authority figures, all of that. And it's like, not that they don't have a place, not that they're like isn't value in what they're doing, but there's also room for us to claim our own empowerment and our own sense of responsibility for the quality of our life in this planet. The government can do a lot, but the more we do for ourselves, the less we're relying on a system that, I mean, let's be honest, it is needing a lot of reform. And you think about like, okay, let's say that a building that you want to fix, it's so far gone that really the only option is to detonate. The only option is to just bring it down. Let's just demolish it. Let's clear the site. Let's build a new building in its place. That's our best option. That's kind of what the Pluto return for the US is getting at. And just imagine, like, we have to get out of the old version before you're going to want to set off the dynamite. And I feel like that's really where we are right now, is like the more we can step into this 5D way of looking at things, where we're responsible for our emotions, we're doing our internal processes to find our empowerment and stand in that and come to other people from a place of knowing that we're powerful, knowing that they don't have a say over how we are and the choices that we make, that we are responsible for ourselves. We can step into that space right now, and like sooner or later the 3D it's going away, and the US Pluto return is another big step forward in that. But it's up to us right now. It's like one of those things when you're talking about Pluto and Capricorn or Uranus in Taurus, these placements, these energies are very slow moving, and they are bringing radical change. And it's happening on a collective level, and there is no stopping it. So there's either leaning into it willingly and working with it and adapting and that sort of thing, or clinging to the past and needing things to stay the same. In which case, in my mind, that's like staying in the building that's about to be detonated. Like, why would you do that? Come out. They're gonna knock that down. You don't want to be in there when that happens. You need to get out here where you're gonna be okay. And that requires, letting go of the past, moving into a place where, even if it's scary, you are your own leader. And in the US Pluto return video, I go in depth into why that's so scary, because it requires that we not only trust ourselves, but even for some of us, it requires that we like ourselves, that we want to listen to our own ideas, that we think that we have good enough ideas to keep ourselves alive and sustaining and thriving even. So there's so much that can be done right now from a proactive standpoint to do shadow work and manage our vibration and tune our frequency to the highest place that we can possibly reach, to accept that vibration management is like any other hygiene that we would do. Like, there's this term, psychic hygiene, that basically says like you cleanse and take care of your aura the same as you would your body. Like, every once in a while you go get in the shower because you're stinky and you're crusty and you're needing a shower, right? You know what that's about. Psychic hygiene is like on a regular basis recognizing that your aura is stinky and crusty and in need of some release and cleansing and recentering and grounding back into your peace. So that psychic hygiene practice of on a regular basis tending to your own vibration. What are you outputting? What is your point of attraction? What have you picked up from other people because you're receptive, which is never a bad thing, but now you're holding it and you need to let it go because now it's in your point of attraction and you're attracting it. That reminds me of a piece that comes from the human design side of things, where on the human design body graph are the 9 energy centers. And if the energy center is colored in, then you have that center activated and you have a regular flow of that energy. On the other side, if it's white, if it's not colored in, that energy center is open or undefined. And those are like our truest superpowers. They are also where we can be driven literally insane. Because when our energy center is open, we are literally absorbing energy from others. We don't make that energy consistently ourselves. We only pick it up from other people. We get it through the transits moving around and activating different energies in us. So when you have open centers in your body graph, like for one example, let's say the spleen, I have an open spleen. So what that means is that the spleen, that energy that the spleen produces is responsible for telling us what to be afraid of. It's responsible for like our survival instincts. So with an open spleen, basically I don't make my own steady stream of energy of fear. Like open spleen people have the potential to be literally fearless. And in its highest form and frequency, open spleen means I can absorb fear from other people. And if I'm really good at my psychic hygiene, I can release that fear out of my vessel because I know how to do that through my aura cleansing processes. And then look at the net effect of what just happened. That person over there had fear. I took it from them. I released it. I transmuted it. Now they don't have it and I don't have it. So the net effect is that they don't have their fear anymore. So those open centers on your body graph are like a gift to the collective if you can figure out the psychic hygiene piece of clearing them out, because they will be receiving all the time. Any open center that you have in your body graph, it is constantly sponging up energy from your environment. And so depending on how open your system is, the necessity of psychic hygiene gets more and more and more important. Yes, we're all probably veterans of the spiritual battlefield here, and we got this. I genuinely believe that, I mean, especially the people watching this, again, whether you're here live or catching the replay, there's an ability and a willingness and a capacity to do this work, to hold these things in your consciousness. And when we're talking about shadow work and we're talking about fears and negative things and doubt and uncertainty, and like these are some of the worst emotions that humans can face. Uncertainty is like one of the worst. And this is a time where like more and more people are ready to be with those emotional energies long enough to decode them into like understanding the message that it really is. And again, I loop back to this is happening in the sky for everyone. I feel like there's so much going on right now in the stars that has so many more people than usual up in their emotions, up in their shadows, and they need help. They need someone who knows how to process this, how to be with this. And that's why, like, I think this is maybe even the perfect segue into the Leo full moon conversation, because this is the time where more and more and more, whether you're identifying more as like a shadow worker or a light worker, this is a time for us to be stepping up and like showing up in the world as that, however you identify with like what your soul is here to do. It's time. It's time to step forward. And the Leo full moon is such a powerful push. It's happening for all of us, you guys. Like this is something that we're all kind of just being given this green light in our own creative expression to say like, what is it that you deeply want? What is it that you like want to express out into the world just for the pure fun of it? Like this right here, this live stream is such a good example. And I've scheduled other live streams because I am enjoying so much doing these. So what is it that you want to do? Like, not because you think that it's going to be important for somebody else or because they're going to pay you lots of money to do it, or, like, what is the work that you would do for free, technically, like not get paid at all, but you would do it because it's so important that you want it to get done, that like that this work needs to get done, and even if nobody's willing to pay me, what is that work that you're wanting to do? And I think the Leo full moon can help us a lot to tune into that. So I have a Leo moon myself, like in my natal chart, so all the time, and it just like puts a spin on things where it has to be fun for you. Like your creative flow exists in a place of play, essentially. And to tap into your creation, like what is your unique self-expression that you want to put out into the world, you have to tune into fun. Like Leo energy is so much about laughter and having fun and finding the vibration of joy and being in that sensation of joy and the ideas that are downloaded in that time of what you want to create while you're in the vibration of joy. Those creations are born of joy. Like there's, I forget where I heard it and the source. I'm real bad about that. But basically, it was an ancient civilization, and their key to manifestation was ecstatic dance. So if they're setting intentions or they're working on their manifestation, they would play music and dance and raise their frequencies to this place of ecstatic euphoria, just like moving their bodies and feeling in the flow and the fun and the play of all of that, the not taking anything seriously, just going with whatever rhythm the music is setting out and being in that flow. And then they would set their intentions for manifesting. They would, work from that vibration. And this is an option that is somewhat spelled out in my gene keys. There's one of my intelligences. I think it was like SQ maybe. I'm not as familiar with gene keys, so I should steer clear. But basically, like one of my intelligence is movement/blood, which basically says like you are more intelligent when your blood is pumping like more readily through your system, when your heart rate is a little bit elevated, when you're maybe a little bit out of breath and you're feeling like the endorphins that get released basically. So there's all of this opportunity to like really play and set ourselves free to express without even really necessarily knowing like what is the outcome even look like what am I trying to create. It can be a way of like almost intuitively feeling your way into it, feeling what's natural for you. And that's where like anytime it's a full moon, it's always the moon is opposite the sun. So this is taking place at, I think, 27 or 28 degrees. Let me look here. This one. Yeah, I think 28 would be really close to you guys. 27, 28 degrees. That's really close enough. If you have planets at the last like 5 degrees of any of the fixed signs, so Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, or Scorpio, then this full moon is making a grand cross with your natal planets, or it's conjunct your natal planets. It's doing something with your chart uniquely that is bigger than just this impact on the collective. But we all are getting this push because it's also making a grand cross with the nodes. So the North Node and South Node are at 27 degrees Taurus and Scorpio, and the Sun and the Moon are at Aquarius and Leo, 28 degrees. So that square is basically saying that like this unique creative expression that like literally only your individual self could generate this creative expression, and you find your way there through play, through fun, that activity is actually part of this sun in Aquarius, like lighting up the future of humanity, like wishing and dreaming of the best possible future for humanity. Plus, this North Node in Taurus of like more and more people finding their own sense of personal empowerment, and like basically your creative expression is in service to all of this for the collective. Like there's this feeling of taking a risk, of stepping out in a way where you've never done that before, but you're going to try something new, and it does feel a little bit like a leap of faith. And I'm going to give you guys the same advice that I was giving the other day about like how to start something brand new, like a podcast, for example. You're like, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to like start my podcast because I don't know what to talk about. And my advice to that is to say I'm starting this podcast even though I don't know what I want to say. I'm very nervous about doing this. This is outside of my comfort zone because of XYZ. I'm wanting to push myself into doing this because of XYZ. Here's what I would like this podcast to be about. Like I mean, it sounds like you're not saying anything, but you're actually voicing something that's extremely relatable, where I would say it's like almost part of the human condition. It's like a universal experience that we all know what it's like to want to do something, but we're scared. And so we're holding ourselves in this place of we're scared. And so this is a time of you're scared and you're doing it anyway. You're scared, but you see the bigger picture reason behind what you're doing. You can feel that this isn't just for you. Yes, it is for you. It is like that Leo moon, that Leo energy is extremely loving of the self first and then of everyone else. The shadow side of Leo, they can get called a little bit self-centered or needy for attention, those kinds of things. But really, it's like Leo energy, the function of it is that it's really good at cheering other people up. It's also really good at keeping yourself happy in the grand scheme of things. Not to say that a Leo person couldn't experience depression like everybody else, but there's just this knack for if I got to do something, I'm going to at least make it fun. And so that's my approach as a dominant Leo moon is like, let's follow the path of most fun. That's what Abraham Hicks called the path of least resistance is the same thing as the path of most fun. That when you're having fun, the resistance is way less important. It's way easier to adapt and conquer or accomplish like whatever resistance shows up, whatever obstacle, you move through it because you're having fun. You know, like learning video editing, for example, like that was such a daunting task, but it was fun to make the videos. It was fun to talk about the different things that I was making the videos about, the content. I was passionate about that. So it's like letting the fun smooth over the challenges, the obstacles that naturally come with stepping outside your comfort zone. And that's kind of what this time is. So I'm going to be super excited to hear, you know, on the next live stream next week on the 18th, what this Leo full moon is bringing up for each of us. Because yeah, it's happening collectively, but it's also working on each of us individually. And I'll have my Law of Attraction live stream on the 16th. So that'll be at 10 a.m. Where that's just going to be a Q&A. I'm going to mostly be in the chat, responding to whatever you guys want to offer. I am not like a certified professional. I think law of attraction is another unregulated industry. But I have been reflecting on it for about 6 years, almost 6 years. So I am just going to answer questions and tell my story with it. And if that's helpful, that's wonderful. And if you're newer to law of attraction and you have questions about how it works, or if you have a specific example, that'll be what that's for. So that was kind of my part of my, we'll see what else comes up, but part of my stepping forward in a new way, offering a live stream on law of attraction. I haven't made really any videos on law of attraction yet. So yeah, just kind of breaking new ground and stepping forward into just some new territory because it sounds like fun. It sounds like fun to get to do even more of these live streams because they're fun. And law of attraction, it's such a powerful skill set. It's a powerful body of knowledge that if I can help anybody understand it even like 1 millimeter more, that will be time well spent. So South Node is Leo. So that means like the full moon is happening next to your South Node, and the sun would be at least in the same sign as your North Node. And so again, like the sun in Aquarius end of it, like it is really wanting us to look at like the bigger picture of the brightest possible future for humanity. And what does that look like? You know, if you could wish for a certain future and it would come true, what would you wish for? And I know that that can sound like frivolous or like pie in the sky or whatever, but this Aquarius sun, Leo full moon, like that's almost exactly what it wants. It wants us to wish some wishes and then like play in a vibration where we can be inspired to create something that maybe in some kind of roundabout way is contributing back to whatever it was that we were actually wishing for as far as the future of humanity. So it's like be the change you want to see in the world kind of thing. Like first you got to know what is the change that you want to see in the world. And change is a tricky subject because it really brings in the old, and it's like, well, I want it to go from this to this. Personally, when I'm doing my envisioning and, you know, trying to daydream about something, I leave it as clean as possible by just saying, what is it that I want? How would it be in this dream version? You don't need to outline the path from there to there. That's the universe's job. And really bringing in the old just activates the old that much more. So just painting a picture of what does the future of humanity look like? Like in my dream scenario, what would I script it to be? And to really like resonate there as far as like, what is it that I really want? And again, that law of attraction live stream is such a good example of what I really want is for more people to be empowered in terms of managing their energy and riding the wave of the information that's flowing through them, their connection to infinite intelligence and their ability to tune their own frequency and thus like reshape their entire life. Like I want people to know how to do that. So here I am with this inspiration to schedule this law of attraction live stream on the Leo full moon, just because I needed a date and that looked just as good as anything else. So yeah, it's like kind of letting yourself work backwards from a dream of what the future, what you would love for it to look like, and let that distill through the ethers how it does and lead to the inspiration with that Leo full moon of like, how can you show up personally to help bring about this collective dream? How to tread in my rockstar energy naturally. Dude, Leo South Node, my brother is a Leo South Node. And when you say rock star, I mean, he kind of, I think he sees himself that way for sure. He was kind of a rapper there for a little while. And yeah, there's just like this natural ability to shine and a natural willingness to shine and kind of like cheer people up and be a source of sunshine for other people. And anytime we're talking about North Node, South Node, it's like it's not about leaving behind the South Node and only enveloping and embodying the North Node. It's like getting the best out of what your South Node skill set has afforded you and moving forward towards your North Node, holding the best of what the South Node gave you. So like in this case, with a Leo South Node, it's like you kind of just shine by nature. You kind of just cheer people up without even really trying that hard to do that. And that's something to be like deeply appreciative to yourself for that, because the world needs more of cheerful, sunshiny, happy people. Like my brother, who's the Leo South Node, like he is very rarely in a bad mood in front of other people. If you see him upset, you know something is deeply wrong. And otherwise, like maybe to his own fault, like he bottles his shit up and doesn't put that on other people. To other people, he's just a ray of sunshine. And so that's a gift. That's a gift of love that is like really priceless. And in your point there then, but people think we are self-aggrandized. So when you have a Leo South Node, or really any South Node, the world can't cooperate with you there. They have to kind of push you out of that behavior. So like we're talking about, these are the natural abilities that Leo South Node gives you, but with it being your South Node, it is not the point. That's really not where the focus is meant to be. It's like harness that and be grateful that you are a ray of sunshine, but ultimately you're trying to transition into the Aquarius energy, which is, it's a very fascinating mix of energy in general, but it's like a loner. So that's like the opposite of needing to be in the center of attention. So you naturally just take a step back and observe what everybody else is doing, not really trying to communicate with them, not needing them to communicate with you. You develop your own natural perspective of like this dream scenario of the future of humanity, because you're on the outside of humanity observing the collective. And from that vantage point, you have almost like genius-like ideas that are available to you because you're separated from the collective. So like you're in this loner position, and from that loner position, you have the good idea, and then you hold solid. So this is where the Leo full moon comes in. Like you're solid in this dream version of what is the best possible future of humanity, not yourself, humanity. You're working on behalf of the collective. You're not doing it to self-aggrandizing. Like that's a feedback that says you're leaning too heavily in your Leo South Node. That when they give you that feedback, that's a road sign in your head that like, yep, you weren't coming to it from a place of Aquarius energy. Because if you were communicating and shining with a message of the highest good of all, the highest good of the entire collective, they wouldn't, I mean, there's really no argument there to say that you're self-aggrandizing, because you're promoting and energizing a message of the well-being of all things, all people. So it's about understanding, like, am I coming or am I going? Like, what is your personal relationship with Leo energy? But I think for all of us, this Leo full moon is absolutely illuminating, what is it? Like, what is it that we want to create? And for each of us, that's going to look a little bit different. Anytime we're talking transits, you can get in your personal birth chart and look at like what houses are Aquarius and Leo in your chart, specifically like 28 degrees of Leo and Aquarius, because that's where the sun and the moon will be at the time of the full moon. So what houses does that take place in your chart? And that can kind of help illuminate, like, basically on the sun end, it can help illuminate how you're putting together that dream of what the future of humanity looks like specifically, what is the shape of that as far as you can see it? I mean, each of us is going to come up with a completely different answer. And whichever house that 28 degrees of Aquarius is in, that's going to be a lot where we're focused on the future of humanity. And then we look on the moon end in the 28 degrees of Leo, and that can show us like, where is this creative self-expression going to take place? Like, where in our life is this actually showing up? Like for me, it's the sun in Aquarius will be in my 11th house and the moon in Leo will be in my 5th house, which are the houses that belong to Aquarius and Leo. So it really is like, for me, it feels like focusing into what do I want for the collective, like just in a way that we trust in our own good intentions, we trust in the own purity or our own purity of heart. And then you say, like, if I could write the script for how the future of humanity would be, what would I want it to look like? And I've been circling around that for quite some time now. Um, and now this Leo full moon, it's like we will be personally inspired with like, what can we do to add to that picture so that it actually gets momentum and manifests in physical form, which is just so exciting. It's like new territory all over the place. So yeah, it's gonna be good. I don't know. Yes, it totally helps when I put my purpose in humanity. Yes. Yes. In service to the collective. That's what Aquarius really is at the end of the day. Like, Aquarius is very individualized. Like, that's also the side of us where like our soul is very intent on fully individuating, meaning like our unique soul imprint energy, it's unique. And again, there's a lot of fear that can exist in a lot of us that says, I don't want to be different, so I'm just going to like be like everybody else and blend in. Aquarius is the energy where, again, you're not afraid to step away from the collective. You're not afraid to be a loner. You're not afraid to be different and do it different. And if people don't like that and they don't resonate, they don't have to do it like you do it. So there is like that individual kind of rebel spirit to Aquarius. But again, like that's just kind of a foundation that allows them to take that step away from the crowd where they can see the like the inner workings and the patterns of the collective. You can see it from a different vantage point. Where again, like there's that humanitarian perspective where you literally just want the good for all beings. And going back to like, you've got to thank the troublemakers. Like, you can't say, well, I want good things for myself and everybody who's like me and everybody that is in my political party and everybody who's in my religion, and I want good things for them, but everybody else, like, nope, they're going to hell. That's not Aquarius energy. That's like, no, that's kind of the opposite. In Aquarius energy, we want good things for everybody. The good ones, the bad ones, the ones who get it, the ones who don't get it, the ones who are hateful, the ones who are loving. Like, we want good things for everybody. So let's write a future. Let's like dream up a dream that has good things coming to everyone. And like, what a different world that would be. Ah, so good. Maddie says she has her Leo moon in the 8th and Aqua in the 2nd, the houses of the current nodes. No wonder it feels so big. Yeah, wow. Well, and like that 2nd and 8th house is the power houses, power dynamic. Like the 8th house is more like spiritual power and emotional power, and the 2nd house is our physical power and our ability to feel secure in the physical world. So yeah, like that's just really interesting. It's like, I would imagine like that Leo in the 8th house, like your creative expression brings up that much more fear, like fear wrapped around the creative expression, that like in order to actually execute it, really the purpose of even having the creative inspiration in the first place is to actually process the fear that's wrapped around it, which I'm not going to say more than that, but Maddie, that just makes a lot of sense. So yeah, that's looking at those houses of like, where might this be showing up for you? Sometimes it's more obvious than others, but a lot of times, like, I feel like those are the kinds of things where if you even just plant it in your head, like, oh, I see here, like Leo's in my 5th, Aquarius is in my 11th, like, I don't really know what that means, but good to know. It's like something plays out in the next couple days that you are looking at this situation, you're like, oh, that's what it means that this is playing out in my 5th house or my 11th house or whatever. So yeah, it can be something that like you just kind of let it unfold, let it reveal itself to you. It doesn't always give you the answer right off the bat. And then this one says Leo and Aquarius are empty in my chart. So even when we don't have planets or placements in those signs, like where the sun is in Aquarius and the moon is going to be full in Leo, this is still huge for each of us. It'd also be really good to look back to, because this is making that grand cross with the nodes, it'd be really interesting to like use this Leo full moon to also tune into your Taurus and Scorpio energy, because they're making those squares with the nodes. So it's like your vision of the future of humanity is helping to inform like this development of Taurus. Your creative self-expression is helping to push you deeper into your Taurus, which like in that example where you're having to process fears in order to execute your creative expression, I mean, yes, you would be drawing on your Taurus energy, on that inner knowing of your own security, on your own stable footing. You would be pulling from that energy in order to help you face those fears and execute whatever your creative self-expression is. So really, it's like, it's a good time to just kind of be aware and bring some curiosity and some observation to your creative flow, your inspiration to create. We all have it inside of us somewhere. For some of us, it's a dominant thing that we deal with every day. Others, it is a very backseat thing that doesn't come up very often. But this is a time with this Leo full moon to pay a little bit more attention to it. And not just the final result of like, what is it that you're trying to create? Like, I want to paint this picture of these sunflowers and it's important because of this reason. And like, this is the picture in my mind of what I'm trying to create. When we're talking about Leo energy, it's not usually about the final outcome. It's about the journey. It's about the joys in the journey. The reason for the creation is inside the process of making it. So that's where, again, it gets really interesting going back to the moon in Leo is squaring the South Node in Scorpio. Those fears are really available to us. It's also squaring the North Node in Taurus, where again, our coping mechanisms are right there. They're able to be put into play to help us soothe ourselves into a place where we feel confident and comfortable and courageous enough to do our self-expression. Like, again, even if let's say you're making a podcast and you have to push pause so that you can stop and take a big deep breath and really just kind of clear your mind for a second, take another big deep breath. That's like using that Taurus skill set while you're doing your Leo self-expression. And again, it's not even about what Leo's creating. It's about knowing how to pull the Taurus into it, knowing how to use your coping skills to embolden yourself to do the creating that you need to do. And I think the stronger we get in our creative flow, the more important the creative inspiration that's flowing through us is. It's like when you're really good at handling your creative inspirations, like you take action on them, you channel them into something physical. Like, I mean, now you're a vessel. Now you're a vessel for the universe to create things through you. And the things that are coming are just more and more and more important to humanity. Like Leo's always opposite Aquarius. Like there's so much about our creation that is literally for humanity. We get to enjoy and soak up the process of doing it, of actually creating. But the final result is like for the highest good of the collective. So it's so much bigger than just us when we have a creative inspiration. Like when you feel like, yeah, I mean, I like to talk and I like to tell stories, but nobody would ever want to listen to my podcast. Like everybody's got their own thing going on. Like nobody wants to hear what I have to say. Like you just don't know. You just don't know. And really what people get out of it is not your business. The process of actually creating it is your business. And that's where the square with the nodes is so interesting to see. Like, yeah, I mean, how free flowing is your creative flow? Is it really restricted by lots of self-doubt and other fears that pop up when you try to go into that creative space? Or is it wide open? Is it like a way where you can see how good your Taurus already is, how good you are at calming yourself down? Like that could be really cool where yes, it includes facing your fears, but in doing that, you see how much strength you already possess. Like so often we hold ourselves back from doing the thing that we know we want to do because we don't feel ready yet. And then from the very first time you do it, it's like, gosh, you're really good at that. And like, how long ago could you have started? I mean, it really doesn't matter. Everything happens at divine timing. But if you're sitting the next time, not if, we all sit here on occasion in our lives, like the next time you're sitting in a before, like in a space where you know what you want to do, but you're in the before, you haven't done it yet. And maybe there's some fears around doing it that's kind of holding you back. Um, it is it's just an arena to practice using that Taurus skill set. And that's where the North Node is. That's where we as a collective are having these karmic lessons that are forcing us to develop our Taurus skill set. And I as a being choose to use language that keeps the fear and threats and panic at a minimum. But how do you develop Taurus if not from being really thrust into how scary Scorpio can be? How when you close your eyes, you see nightmares on the backs of your eyelids. Like how do you combat that? And you develop your Taurus energy. And so it's like not necessarily a pretty ride, but the more we do it willingly, the less we're pushed into it by really awful Scorpio things showing up in our world. But when they do, it's just an invitation into a space of playing with our Taurus energy and our self-soothing and our ability to get ourselves back to calm, stable, secure. Because that's something that we can do no matter what is going on in the outside world. And ultimately, in this time of massive change, that's what we're being invited to cultivate, is this ability to be present in our now and to feel good in our now, no matter what is happening around us. If the world is crumbling, if we're at war, if we're hungry, if we're like cultivating the ability to feel secure inside of ourselves because we can feel our connection to our spiritual support. That's something that doesn't go away as long as we're alive. It's something that is totally secure. We can't ever lose it. And this time of kind of our world being turned upside down, the like earth being pulled out from under our feet, kind of literally, it's like that's what has to happen to push us into finding where our stable ground actually is in the first place. So I think that's all I got in me for this day. This has been magical and delicious. As always, I will leave us with just some upcoming dates, things that you can find coming up. So I will also say, so I told you guys about my work project that I've had a year to do, and now I'm down to the crunch time and I need to like just make it happen. And I'm going to, I totally can do this. But that means that I went through my schedule and I put it on my calendar, these work days, in order to get the project done on time. So with that, I would say I'm gonna have to pull just a teensy bit of my focus out of making videos. This makes me sad, and I think this is part of why I need to go through this. I think it's going to light my fire to make more videos on my YouTube channel than ever before. But for the next 3 months, while I'm finishing this work project, I got to pay my bills, all of that. I'm just going to have to shift down a gear on making videos, but I am still going to do these Friday live streams. I do have a couple other live streams, like I said, about the one on the 16th on the Leo full moon. That'll be a law of attraction Q&A. And then I also have on the 26th, which is a Saturday, a live stream about shadow work. That's another Q&A. And then the Zooms. So this would be through the Patreon if you're wanting to subscribe to that. The very first event, you have not missed it yet. I'm so excited to do this very first one of these 4th Tuesdays, where it is an open forum, essentially. Like nothing's off limits. Whatever you want to ask about, let's have a little conversation, and I'll have as many of these mini conversations as I can in the couple hours that we're going to be on the Zoom. So the first one is the 4th Tuesday. That's the 22nd of February. The bonus event for March takes place on March 5th. So that's a Saturday, and that's a shadow work Zoom. And then we'll do 4th Tuesday in March as well. So yeah, that is where I'm at. That is kind of where my focus will be. I'm going to do these Friday live streams and the Patreon couple of events a month, and make as many videos as I can for the YouTube channel. But yeah, ultimately, I was very blessed to get this work project in the first place, and I absolutely want to finish it. And it feels like kind of a spiritual journey in itself. Like my Neptune is in Capricorn, and building this set of, it's kind of like a training archive, a training program for how to open a grocery store. And so building this and processing through what I've learned these last 5 years, and sharing my information and paying it forward, and filling every bit of it with the love that I have inside of me all the time, that I love putting into my spiritual work, but I'm going to put it into these grocery videos and invest that energy into these people who are going to be watching these videos, are the ones who are going to be opening new grocery stores in communities that don't have them. So investing my energy there feels really purposeful in its own right. And like my Leo moon does with anything, if it has to do it, it's at least going to make it fun. So I've turned it into a game for myself, and I'm totally going to do it. It's going to be great. And I can tell you, I'll bet you by the time I get to June, at the end of these 3 months, like I am going to have this hunger, this appetite for making YouTube videos. Like that's really where I wish I was right now, was doing that full time. But I think a little bit of being held back from it is only going to stoke those fires that much more. So yeah. Yeah, so good things. I will be around. I'm not going anywhere, but I do have to focus into these other videos, these training videos. So that is what it is. And that's a whole process all by itself. So yeah, I thank you guys for hanging out with me all the time, no matter if you're coming to the Patreon stuff, you're just hitting the live stream, you're catching the replay, you're watching the videos, all the things. I appreciate it so much. I am like this close to being a full-time, like making a living off of content creation, which is just mind-blowing, you know? And I literally wouldn't be here without you guys. So I thank you for that. And who knows what's going to happen to our community here in the next 3 months while I'm like really trying to focus on this other project. So sometimes kind of taking your mind off of something and giving it some space and distance to like do its little marination thing can be the best thing for it. So I think some of that could be going on too, that like maybe getting my mind off of it and just letting it unfold how it will, that could be the best thing for more people who are ready to talk about these things to show up in our space where we can welcome them. Like I said at the very beginning about like you burst through out of this like solo journey out into the other side of like where you were trying to get all along. And there's this whole community of people here to hang out with you and welcome you and congratulate you and like cheer with you and be so excited for what's going on in your world. And yeah, that's just so much. Will you be doing shorts as a teaser? What does that mean? Will you be doing shorts as a teaser? I mean, I'll still be making videos like my series that I'm working on right now, where I'm going through each of the different north nodes and talking about how can each individual natal north node placement get the most out of this transit of the north node through Taurus. So I have the first 3 of those on the channel. I have 1 in the editing stage. And then I have a individual session with somebody, not tomorrow, but the next Saturday. And what they want to talk about leads me directly into their North Node, which is in Scorpio in the 4th house. And I haven't done the Scorpio video or the Cancer video yet. So that is super exciting that I'm going to have to study those things for that person's reading anyway. So that's my goal, is to kind of make those videos as I do that. So it's kind of all like, you know, together. So YouTube now offers short clips like in TikTok. Yes. And so you could probably imagine that, like, my go-to is these really long videos. Like, look at, I've been talking for like 2 hours and 20 minutes straight. Doing a 15-second to 60-second video feels like the hardest thing I could ever try to do. It's very frustrating to try to make content in that length of time, especially when I'm a very long-winded person. So yeah, I've played around with shorts like on TikTok and Instagram, Reels and that kind of thing. I've never tried on YouTube, but anything's possible. You know, that's all you got to know about that, is, you know, anything's possible. But yeah, I need to finish that project. They emailed me the other day and were like, you know, so we just need to know, like, are you going to finish it, or are you like, should we reallocate these funds to someone else, basically? And I was like, no, I'm going to finish it. So it just kind of was what I needed to. I tend to work better under pressure. A year was, I mean, it doesn't take a year to make that project. So now I'm like, okay, so I have it condensed into 3 months, and let's just knock it out. And so many times in my life that I've set a goal and like do the Capricorn thing where I put my blinders on and I don't get distracted and I just chip away at it until it's finished. And I've done that a million times. And I just don't live like that anymore. I go with my flow, and I wake up in the morning and I do what I feel like doing. And most of the time I feel like working on my owning authenticity content. And this is like time to set that structure and to prioritize it and commit to it and do it for the bigger picture of, like, you know, I'm very blessed that they're willing to pay me to make these and what that money is able to do in my life. So yeah, it's a bigger picture way of looking at it for sure. Right? It doesn't feel that long. Like, the only reason I know it feels long is because I can feel like it's almost like a cell phone battery is what it feels like inside of me. Like, when I first start talking, it's like 100% charged and like super high energy. And by right now, I feel like my battery's at like 10 or 15%. Somebody told me the other day, that they really wanted to come to these astrology and coffee live streams, but they're like, I mean, by the time it's over, I'm just drained and I don't recover. That's like the whole rest of my Friday. And I'm like, yeah, me too. That's how I feel at the end of this. I get off here and I'm just like a little robot that fell asleep and you got to plug it back into the wall so it can recharge. Like, yeah, even though it's only been a couple hours, like, this is all I do for a whole day. This is my whole Friday. So you guys, I thank you so much for hanging out with me. You have no idea how much it means to me. Maybe you do. I mean, you guys are pretty special creatures, so you probably get it. And until next time, I mean, I'll have videos coming out on the channel and I'll for sure be here every Friday. Trust me, I'll be wishing the whole entire time that I was doing more to interact with you guys, but maybe absence makes the heart grow fonder just a little bit. And yeah, go back to that stage where before you guys got here in the physical and I was communicating with you energetically, go back and like ground into that some more. So yay, yay. Okay. Yeah, I know. So many yummy things coming, even though I'm going to have to focus outside of this just a little bit. So yeah, next week will actually be the 2 live streams, the one on Wednesday and then again on Friday. So yes, many blessings to you as well. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your Friday and weekend and week whenever you are catching this. I thank you so much for hanging out with me. And until next time, you take such good care of yourselves, and so will I.